All right, hello. My name is Alian Iskandari,
And I'm Kaiten Scott.
and we're here to show you our final computer science project. So, I'll explain it while running the program. So, our program is a spell check program, and what it does is that it takes in a file or a text input. What comes as a result is the number of misspelled words. It's just information about that text. So, it'll return misspelled words, how many words are misspelled in each sentence, the average word count per sentence, and how many words there are in total, how many sentences there are in total. But the best way to explain it is to show you. So we have a layout. So we have a layout where we have a box. The first box is where we input text, which is an option. And then we have a result section, which prints out the results. And then we have three buttons. So the first button is a select file button. And we already have a predetermined text file. As you can see, this is what's inside the file. There's one misspelled word right here, but we'll get to what happens when that pops up. So as we just press open, and then we press submit. And so after that, a certain amount of information will come up in the results box. So as you can see, it shows you the words, the sentences, the average words per sentence. It shows us how many words were misspelled in total, and then it shows us what word was misspelled, and then it tells you how many words are misspelled in each sentence. And then there's also a way to do that through text. So first we'll press the reset button, which will bring everything back to normal. And then we can just type in an incorrect word, so something like that. And then we type in some regular words right here. And then you can do like a sentence.
Sentence right here, and let's do another incorrect word, and then some more words, and then let's see what happens. So then we press submit again, and then it takes in what's inside the text. So we have 9 words in total, we have 2 sentences, and then we have 4.5, and then the 2 misspelled words, and it tells us right here, the words are misspelled, and then it tells us how many misspelled words were in each sentence. So now I'll let my partner Kaden explain what's been going on inside in the background. Okay, so our entire code consists of 11 different functions in Python. The first function, word counter, it counts all the words, and on line 9,
It reads the file and splits the text into words. And what the function does is count all the words, and it creates a new word count. The second function, split text, splits the file into sentences. And line 22 looks at the punctuation, which is the sentence, and line 23 splits the file into a list consisting of each sentence. The third function, sentence counter, counts how many sentences there are by checking the length of the list created in the previous function. The fourth function, average words, counts the average words per sentence by using the measurements from the previous functions. For the fifth function, load dictionary, it takes in a text file that we found on the internet, and the text file that we found contains every single word in the dictionary. Our sixth function, spell check, checks if each word in the text file belongs in the dictionary, and if the word is not found in the dictionary, it's marked as misspelled. The next function, error count, takes the misspelled words and creates a dictionary of all the misspelled words in each sentence. For our eighth function, total misspelled, it counts the total amount of misspelled words. And for the ninth function, error words, it makes a list of all the misspelled words. The 10th function, analyze file, summarizes information, just summarizes all the information of the previous functions. And our 11th function, print info, is the test function and prints all the results of everything to see the final results.
And then we have our graphical user interface, and so that just takes all the functions that we've worked on together and puts it inside it's used by the GUI. And so what we have is we did it by using tkinter, and so we import our previous Python file, and we use that information. So what we did is we created a title, as you can see. So I could kind of explain it while we're going on, but we created the title at the top right here, and then we also created like some big text right here through these variables right here, and then also adjusted the variables right like this. And then throughout the process, we added just some more description text, and then we also added a box, a user input box. And so this is the first box right here, and as you can see, the second box is this is actually the description text. So this is what's above the second box, and then we have the results box. So then we have our functions that pop up or that execute when we click a button. And so we have our show text, and this was when we click submit, the submit button right here, that's right here. And so what that does is that goes through a bunch of scenarios. And so we have the first scenario, which is if a file is inputted, if a file is selected. And then our second function, or our second case scenario, is when a user is typing in a text box. And so we also had an error prevention when there's nothing in the text box. And then we also have so those are two options. And then we have the open file, which works when a file is selected, and that accesses the file and uses that tool to and the final py uses that file during that section. And then we have a reset button, or a reset function, that is activated when the reset button is clicked. And so that just makes sure that all the files get deselected, that the text box clears, and then that also the results box clears. And so that's what happens. And then we have these buttons right here that just execute the functions that are above through things like these, through the commands. And so now I'm going to pass it back to my partner, and he'll explain the resources that we used.
Okay. So for the resources that we used to help complete the project, we went on a website called SourceForge, and SourceForge, what we found was an open source file that has every single word in the dictionary. And what we also did was we also looked up tutorials on how to use tkinter.
And so just to conclude, some things that we would add if we had more time, or if we were to work on this further, would be possibly like a grammar integration. So that will actually come in the form of two things. So first, we were thinking about having in the results box, say if let's just run a function, but say during the results section we had sorry, give me 1 second. So say during the results section, we're thinking about after this section right here, we would tell the person which word that they were actually trying to spell, but we found that to be very time consuming, so then we ended up scratching that. And then also, as far as grammar, we were thinking about adding ways to detect correct punctuations or correct sentence patterns, but that we also realized that would be also time consuming. In conclusion, I enjoyed this project. We enjoyed this project very much. Do you have any last words that you would like to say?
It took a long time, but at the end, I feel like our project was, it was worth taking the time to do it, because we made a good product.
Yeah, and we learned a lot of new things, especially with tkinter. That was something that, at least for me, it was completely new. I had some coding background, but not in terms of working with GUI. So I really enjoyed that part. Thank you.